Hey everybody, John Brown here with my review of Automobiles, a bag building racing game. This is going to be a pretty short review. If you haven't seen it yet, please go check out my other video. If you're watching this on Board Game Geek, it should be pretty close to this. Or even better yet, go to my YouTube channel and it'll be there. And if you like my videos, go ahead and subscribe. But I did a 2-round playthrough of a 3-player game. And there even though I don't go into like all the rules of how to play, you can pretty much see how you play the game, drawing cubes, moving, and buying cubes at the end of your turn, but it'll give you a good idea of how the game actually plays. Here I'm just going to be going over a quick overview of the game itself and what I think about it. So first let's take a look at components. Alright, as far as the box is concerned, kind of standard size, AEG artwork that kind of goes along with the Planes, Trains, and now Automobiles game. Go ahead and get the box open here, but, fairly nice, nothing to complain about there. The rulebook itself is, when I first looked at it, I thought it was fantastic. Nice, decent sized print, lots of pictures in that. As I played the game more, there were a few questions that I had issues finding answers to, and went to Board Game Geek and then eventually realized that all of the questions I had were explained in the rulebook. They just weren't necessarily explained in the rules. They tended to be explained in the example. Overall, I still think the rulebook is pretty solid, and I eventually did realize that everything I needed was in there. So thumbs up for that. We've got player boards, standard fare. They are two-sided depending on if you were playing on the kind of NASCAR style track or Formula One track, but they're no different from each other. The game doesn't really play any different from each other. The board itself, relatively simple artwork, but functional and well done. And as I showed in the playthrough video, there is the oval track, and then on the other side, the more complicated with curves kind of Formula One track, where you might need to play with a little bit of different strategy. You have multiple of the long black areas in a row, but only on one side of the board. So the insert is fantastic. You can take the cubes out and put them on the table, or leave the cubes in these boxes when you play or whatever. Just open up the lid. Now, quick interjection here. I'm throwing this back in editing because I forgot to mention this in my final thoughts at the end. But while there is a decent amount of color difference in the cubes themselves that are the cubes you purchase, your gear cubes are just varying shades of white to black, and in particular, the two grays are pretty close to each other. Close up, if you don't have any issues with colors, then you're probably okay, but they can be a little hard to tell even if you don't have issues with color. And if you do have issues with color, this game could definitely cause some issues, I think, with no other way to tell the cubes apart, and those shades of gray in particular being kind of tricky. So I thought I would throw that in there. It is kind of potential negative and something that you do have to bear in mind. Also, the bags are fantastic. Sadly, my box was missing a bag. This seems to be a problem that several people have had, although I did email AEG, and within a couple of days I got a thing that they sent out a replacement bag. So, it doesn't really annoy me when a company is missing a component, as long as they're willing to replace it and not give any issues. The cards themselves are, fairly straightforward, and, they explain what they do on them, as I showed in the gameplay video. And, they're glossy and nice and all that, and then, of course, the cubes. And that's pretty much all the components. So, overall, I particularly like this, the rulebook. You might need to look in the examples and not just a list of rules in the book to find everything, but overall, pretty solid component-wise. Alright, so what do I think about the game? Well, not that long ago, I wasn't a big fan of racing games. I actually purchased Formula D, Formula D, and wasn't really impressed with it. Some racing games I kind of enjoyed, but weren't pure racing games, like Jamaica. And in general, it wasn't a board game genre that I thought was all that well done. A while back, I played Thunder Alley, and I don't own a copy of it. It was something that people in my group owned. I played a lot there. I didn't really feel the need to buy it. I may buy that someday. I may do a review on it if I do, or if I borrow it from somebody. That is a fantastic racing game, and it kind of reinvigorated, my hope for the genre. And then I recently pointed out an interview or a review I did how a certain reviewer liked the game that I purchased and I really didn't. That reviewer also very much like this game, and in this instance, I would have to say that reviewer is absolutely right. I'm talking about Joel Eddy. He's a fantastic reviewer, drive-through review, and he kind of talked about how this and Thunder Alley are both really good games, but this game might replace that for him. For me, the two games are very different. You could definitely own both. I mean, you can own two worker placement games, you can own two racing games, because that game is a team management, hand management game, and it plays entirely differently where you're worried about an entire team, and there's more interaction in between players too. You're pulling players along, pushing players, grouping up your team, trying to get them to move with each other and things like that, whereas in this you're only worried about one car. So this is a little bit simpler. There are cards that are a little bit wonky and a little bit complicated, and while the gameplay itself is super simple, you draw your cubes, you do stuff with it. If you have cubes you didn't use, you can buy other cubes with it. You draw more cubes, so on and so forth. Pretty simple. The interactions can be a little bit odd, but once you get used to what each one of the cards do in the game, then you're set to go, and it's really not that complicated once you kind of get over what each card does that you're playing with. You're only worried about one car, so that makes it simpler. Not necessarily a negative, but something to keep in mind. There isn't a ton of interaction. There will be situations where, based on what you draw in the position of other cars, you might not even be able to move on a turn. As long as you're not near the end of the game, where you really need to make a big push toward a finish, that's not necessarily a terrible thing, because you spend a whole turn, buying other cubes and making your bag better and more versatile. You do have to think about versatility, about moving, because it's great to, get in a position where you're right behind someone, but being close to other people, you do have to think, well, especially, when you end your turn behind someone, because then you don't take any additional wear cubes for, wherever you moved on the track. You have that positioning thing, you have that trying to draft, you have that sometimes having to get around players, and that's about it for the interaction. So if you're looking for more interaction, then maybe Thunder Alley would be your thing. This one, though, is probably a little bit simpler to actually handle. Overall, I personally really like Thunder Alley, but this game also has a lot going for it as well. A big positive, I'll say, and again, that less interaction, less complex isn't necessarily a bad thing, just why I personally prefer Thunder Alley, where this game has a really nice thing going for it in variability, in that there are 4 different cards for each color. So each of the colored cubes that you can buy and you play can vary wildly, and there are suggestions in the book, and actually in my playthrough that I did of the 2 turns, I set up the example at the beginning of the book that wasn't technically the beginner game. I realized they have all different kinds of examples. You can just randomize, you can make up your own setup, and that's really nice. And the game does play a little bit differently depending on what you have, and there are different strategies. I played where I mostly went, the last time I played at our board game night, where I mostly went with 2 of the colors and ignored another 2. It did pretty well, I came in second. But this game is, pretty exciting. Yes, like any racing game, you can have players fall behind, but sometimes you can make a big move when you're behind. There are cards that you can play with that give an advantage to being behind. You might want to purposely hang back for a little bit. You can vary the length of the race, obviously. I think 3 is a good number. That's kind of the suggested number of laps. I think that's pretty good. The game we played, I crossed the finish line first. I got substantially past the finish line, and the round that somebody finishes, you finish that round. I happen to also be the first player. And another player played an amazing move and got just 1 space by me and ended up winning the game. So I do have to say that this is, a pretty exciting game. And if I were to do, I wouldn't even do a top 10 racing game because there aren't 10 racing games that I really like, but a top 5, this maybe would make it in at number 2. I really enjoyed it. It's got ease of play, it's got variability, and while I personally, even though I haven't done a review, would say I prefer Thunder Alley and balancing your team and the other players and stuff like that, this is a pretty light racing game that is really enjoyable. And, no major complaints. Yeah, you can get stuck behind somebody, but you have to, where it's difficult to move, but you have to make your bag versatile because of that. You might get a bad draw. So those are things that may, detract for some gamers, so know that going in. But due to the variability, due to the ease of play, this is a game that I do think has a pretty wide appeal, and I can definitely recommend. If you enjoyed this, please check out my YouTube channel, subscribe. I'm really trying to grow it. The computer I ordered is on the way. The microphone I ordered is on the way. I'm going to be looking at camera equipment this weekend and really trying to invest in the channel. I want to thank everyone who has been a part of the channel so far, and if you enjoy it, please subscribe, spread the word, and hopefully things will keep getting better and better. The channel will keep growing, and we'll have more reviews for you coming up soon. And also, as I said in my channel update, some video game content as well. Video games specifically for board gamers, and just also regular video game content as well. But the board gaming content will not slow down at all. In fact, hopefully there'll be even more and more of it, and it's something I'm very much looking forward to, and I hope you guys are too. So if you're interested in what the channel is doing, make sure you subscribe at JB's Total Gaming, and check out my Twitter, also at JB's Total Gaming, and Twitch channel also coming soon. So again, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Alright, bye!